Hello and welcome to episode number 370. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. A project is truly successful only if it delivers the benefits an organization envisions. This is the first sentence in Mark Langley's foreword of the in-depth report titled Delivering Value, Focus on Benefits During Project Execution, which PMI published as part of its Pulse of the Profession series. At first glance, this sentence, a project is truly successful only if it delivers the benefits an organization envisions, is awfully obvious to us project managers. But having good and successful benefits realization management and thereby turning this statement into a reality is what makes our job so hard and rewarding. If you are a project manager who wants to become PMP or PMI ACP certified, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast or the Agile Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching the in-depth exam prep video training from pmprepcast.com. So what exactly are benefits realization and benefits realization management? Is there a benefits management process, and how does all of this fit into project benefits management? How about if I let Dave Davis explain it all to you? He has authored one of the articles in that Pulse of the Profession report from where I took the earlier quote. The article is titled The Benefits Management Journey and serves as our guide. We'll learn what exactly benefits realization management is, review the process of implementing it on projects, meet the people involved, and we'll even talk about tools. And now, do failing projects have benefits? I'll tell you all about it at the very end of the episode. But first, please enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Dave L. Davis, Project Manager for General Electric Brilliant Factory.
Hello, Dave. Welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Our topic today is benefits management. I don't think here on the podcast we've actually talked about benefits management with anyone else. You're the first one. So let's start relatively basic here with my first question. Why is benefits management important, and also how will our listeners and their projects benefit from our discussion here today? And yes, pun fully intended with that question.
I got it. Oh, gosh, that's such an intricate question. I mean, there's so many different tangents I can take from it. First of all, I don't think it's any more, quote, important today than it's been in the past. It just is. As organizations have matured, they've become pretty good, for the most part, at handling the triple constraints. So the projects we're doing, we're getting good at, but are we doing the right projects? And that's where I think the benefits realization, benefits management comes in. Are we doing the right things? And we used to pretty well in the past, I've been in the business for over 30 years, and cost benefit has always been a term, but it's just been that cost versus benefit, which is usually measured very quantitatively in some sort of monetary return. But benefits management, benefits realization, however we want to phrase that, is trying to look beyond just the financial benefits being returned back to the organization. It's looking at different tangible and intangible things and getting a handle on those and trying to come up with what is our best overall investment return for the company is what's making benefits management, benefits realization much more important. And it also does bring in a time factor as far as when you start to realize some of these benefits. But the thing that I find exciting with benefits management and why it's getting so much attention is that it's going on, as I said, just beyond the financial aspect. It's really, what is my company going to be able to do in the future that we can't do today? You know, there's a benefit to be able to expand capacity, to be able to do more things with the same resource you have or gain some efficiency, productivity enhancements. But we're also, now that we have this digital world and instantaneous customer feedback, there's benefits towards capturing things such as a net promoter score. How likely is a customer to recommend me to another person? And those types of metrics and benefits are becoming much more a part of the equation of the overall value of, are we doing the right thing? So I think what benefits is, what's driving a lot of this benefits attention now is not just the ROI and did I spend $2, get $3 back, but did I spend $2, not only did I get more money back, did I get my name promoted the way I want? Did I get my corporate image the way I want it to be? Did I get my message to a certain target audience? Is my brand being positioned the way I want it to be done? So it's really expanding that type of work beyond just the deliverable or the outcome and capability of the projects. And the other thing that I think that's making it more important, true benefits management realization has to be enterprise-wide. With IT doing it, it's kind of the tail wagging the dog. And yes, there's an investment in an IT product or capability, and it can deliver certain amounts of productivity, et cetera. But as I said, if we look at what can the company do in the future state that it can't do now, that becomes an enterprise-wide equation. And we're putting discipline around that. And that's what I find exciting about the whole benefits realization ideal. Now, why do we care as a project? How do I benefit from them? I want to go a little bit into PMI standards here and how it fits, and then we'll go into it. Benefits is considered at a program level within the PMI hierarchy between portfolio programs and projects. And it's kind of the bridge between strategic investment and tactical implementation. So where it really becomes a factor from a project level, which is the tactical implementation, is what benefits am I delivering back to the business from the outcomes and capabilities this project delivers? And then you need to start make decisions. It's a new decision-making model on my change requests and other things in the project. How do they impact the benefit we're bringing back to the customer or to the organization, I should have said. So the triple constraint's still there, but now let's look at that triple constraint through a lens that says, what's the benefit? And you can't do that unless you have a good benefits model. You know what you're trying to get. You forecast where they're coming back to you. And those things all factor together. So being able to answer that question back to your stakeholder, not only how does this affect my schedule, my scope, or my cost, but how does it impact the benefit that we're trying to get for the organization? That's a pretty powerful mindset.
Okay. Thank you very much. A wonderful overview here. Let's make this a little bit personal, because you said that you've been in the business for about 30 years, and we'll learn in a minute that you have actually recently written about benefits management. But how did you personally get involved with benefits management and your interest in it?
Well, it's been several years, but I was involved with, I had a long career at AT&T for 25 plus years and was involved in the foray into electronic bonding between major customers. And that electronic bonding in a nutshell is if the customer has an application and we have an application that do similar functions. For example, in telecommunications, if you have a network issue, the big customer probably has their own help desk that's tracking down that people are having problems on a network, and AT&T has a thing tracking down the problems have a customer in the network. In the past, they would pick up the phone, call each other, rekey it in, etc. They had a system to track their trouble. AT&T had a system to track their trouble. Build an application interface so if something's found in the AT&T network, they can immediately notify the customer electronically that something's down. And the customer knows without having to call in and not have to have that verbal exchange and rekey and redundant data. You can real time have a sharing of the application information. As I started to work on that and helped develop ROI models to persuade customers to invest in an enhancement to their application so it could talk electronically to a supplier application, or we're also involved in some managed services, and there are some big contracts, etc. To be able to put together the story of what the benefits was of doing this is when I started to get into looking at beyond the, as I said, just the financial impact only. What's the value of being able to be proactively notified that there's a hiccup going on in your network? And so that started getting me involved in the early part of the 2000s, and that expanded a little bit more. I've been very active in PMI, and PMI then introduced version 1 of the program management standard, and that just clicked with where I was in my career at the time as far as working on helping to define these value propositions with customers to do electronic bonding. So it just sort of evolved into that to get a better understanding. As I talked about before, the program management standard, which actually can be used to get a program management certification, a PGMP, of which I think I was the 27th PGMP in the country. So I've been involved in it from a while going back. But those things started to work together, and it's become a foundation for a lot of the work I do nowadays. So, and being able to present, again, that with customers, let's think beyond just the productivity savings and what was traditional time management and stopwatch click on and off. We're now starting to look enterprise-wide. What are some more things we can do? So that challenge of evolving the business was very instrumental in me getting more engaged.
Based on everything that we've heard and talked about so far in the interview, can you summarize maybe what the goal of benefits management is?
Yes, and actually I'm working with PMI right now. I'm letting a cat out of the bag a little bit for the upcoming PMO conference later on this year. PMI is going to have information kiosk available, but one of the products in there will be sort of this overview of where benefits fit in, and to get people aware and interested and not a little knowledgeable on benefits management. So look forward to that at a website near you or at the conference. But in a nutshell, what it is I have a current state and I want to get to a future state. What do I need to get there? What's my future state going to look like? And why is it worth my spending resources to get there? So then you look at that and said, okay, over time, I'm going to forecast what my benefits are, and I'm going to set expectations for when I should start to realize these back. And I'll go back to the thing I said originally. Is it the right thing to do? One thing that probably everybody would agree with is over the last couple of years, the number of demands of enhancements or work to improve the business has not gone down. It's getting larger and larger. Managing that funnel and that pipeline becoming more and more of a challenge. And we probably know of several companies that invested in the wrong thing and are no longer with us today because they invested in the wrong thing or didn't invest. Not to pick on anybody in particular, but I think BlackBerry is a good example of a company that kind of didn't make the right investment decisions and came too late. So am I investing in the right thing is where the benefits is becoming more and more important. And then if I've invested in the right thing, do I now have a governance model that I evaluate, monitor, control what I'm getting? Is this still worth keeping the investments going? Am I getting back what I expected, or have I discovered new things? That whole idea of, okay, we do things right for the most part, but now we need to do the right things.
You published an article in PMI's Pulse of the Profession. It's called the Benefits Management Journey. And in that article, you discuss 3 areas on how to do benefits management. They are plan and model the benefits, align the plan with the stakeholders, and realize the benefits. And why don't we, on a high level, look at each of these 3 and you can tell us a little bit more about them. So let's begin with the first one here. Plan/model the benefits. What do we do here?
Okay. This is with the assumption that the powers that be, kind of a pun intended, has chartered a program is worth investing in. So that came with a high-level business case. It said things like we may get X number of revenues to come in It may be this type of cost in order to support it. It may have this particular market, other thing. But usually it's at a much more of a forecast level. And so plan and model the benefits is to get the key stakeholders together and start to define what are truly these benefits we need to have. And I've done several of this. Actually, this model, I was involved with an organization, a financial services organization that was implementing benefits practices, which is what was the basis for that article. And we would have benefits elicitation sessions to try and get input from all the key stakeholders as what the benefits were. And also an analysis of business intelligence and trends going on in the industry, competitors, SWOTs were doing. And we would end up with having a large list of benefits. But each of those benefits, then we need to qualify and quantify. And what we really needed to drive to was how were we going to measure? So what were the KPIs that once we developed things, that we would be able to get an idea that we were seeing back what we were getting? Now, notice I said once we developed things. So part of this plan and model is to look at over the future, what are outcomes and capabilities that I need to develop? And in a nutshell, that's basically capabilities. And this was an IT group, which was a little bit of the tail wagging the dog again. But capabilities are things that an individual application will do, right? Outcomes is really more of what the combination of systems and organization will do. You can have one system have an interface with another. Each one has to have its own capability, but that two systems talking to each other is an outcome. And so as we looked at what would the benefits be, then you had to look at what was your support system and what were outcomes and capabilities that need to be developed in order to start to realize these benefits. And then what was the KPI in order to measure that success? So that's where we talk about plan and model. And we would really start out with a huge list. And then as you went through several iterations, it would start to consolidate. Some benefits didn't cut the mustard. They didn't come back as far as a valid number, or they found that it was redundant with something else, or maybe it wasn't something that was truly a benefit at all, but more of an outlying indicator. So plan and model the benefit was just that piece. Let's understand what our benefits are, what our KPIs are that'll be able to tell us if we're achieving the benefit. And then we also, within model, we put in a tolerance level. Say we projected, let me just give you an example, that we were going to do some sort of initiative that would improve fuel efficiency of our fleet, of our truck fleet. And we had a goal that said that we would be looking to improve that fuel efficiency by 6%. Let's say that we had a tolerance level that if we were only getting 2% after a quarter, we would take some sort of corrective action. Or if we're getting 10%, we'd take some sort of corrective action, mainly remodifying our model. But so the plan and model was just that, defined what our metrics are, how they come back to the future state, and what are our tolerance levels to make decisions to trigger action, in which we will correct or adjust is a better term to the changing conditions. I want to elaborate just a minute on that fuel example. And the important thing in the benefits there, and I like that example, is the benefit would be the percentage of economy we got, not dollar savings, because gasoline is an excellent example. The price of gasoline fluctuates a lot. If 2 years ago I would have said that I'm going to do something and it's going to reduce my gasoline cost by $600,000 a year, I would have been able to do that if I'd even been inefficient, because the price of gasoline dropped to $1.50 a gallon. But if I had it as a percentage of my efficiency, something that marginal, that variable cost of the gasoline isn't going to be a factor at all, then I'm able to focus in better on the value of what I'm delivering. So when I talk model and plan, it brings all those factors in together to put together what's known in the standards of benefits realization plan of where can we expect over time the intermittent steps to get to that future state, how we'll be able to measure that we're getting there.
The second area that you talk about in your article is align the plan with the stakeholders. Now, is the whole plan and model and then the aligning, are those two really distinctly separate processes that, follow each other sequentially? Or is there some kind of an overlap? But do you do them at the same time?
There's a lot of overlap, a lot of negotiation, iterative, agile type practices in some ways too, like I said, with the iterative and whatever. But it's truly getting to the person that's willing to commit budget dollars or some sort of savings value back to the business that they will be able to provide that value back to the business. So it's getting an ownership level. And really what you need to think about here is who owns the KPIs, because they're the ones that ultimately are the ones that deliver that the benefits are truly realized. So when we talk about this, align the plan with the stakeholders, that's getting everybody to agree that they contribute this back on these benefits and that this person owns the benefits. And the idea also in here, the program won't be around forever. It needs to somehow be transitioned to an operations group that will then assume the realization of the benefits. So it's getting the agreement on what organizations these will be transitioned to in an operational perspective. So it's really looking at taking the program from its implementation development phase into a new business as usual. So there's a lot of negotiation here and ownership and accountability of the decision-making models and who truly contributes things to these KPIs and who can take action to change the behaviors of what contributes to those KPIs. And the whole concept again of baselining, et cetera. And where it comes in with benefits is this is more than just a project. This could be multiple projects within the program. So there could be a project that's working on one part of the business to be able to reduce the amount of time it takes to enter an order or to be able to start to process an order. Then there may be another part that's looking at unit cost of producing a customized product from that order. Each one of those are going to contribute to the overall benefits of the program, which may be order efficiency or somehow be able to have more customer self-service, whatever that may be. But who truly owns some of those benefits? And you may want to break your benefits down into two different metrics there. Efficiency of initiating the order and then efficiency of producing the order. So that's how those come to play. And it may not just be one project. It may be two projects, could be multiple projects. There will even be projects, infrastructure type projects that are put in that don't realize any benefits immediately, but will start to realize the benefits when the next project comes in that uses that platform. So that's where the planning comes in, futuristic, and then the alignment with the stakeholders that they'll agree to contribute back to the organization.
Right. And I think those two areas are really the hard part. And the third area that you talked about, that's the easy one, right? Realize the benefits. I mean...
yes and no. The challenge, I think, the program, during the startup of the program, it's pretty easy because there's just a few things. But as the program extends over time and that transition to operations and some of that becomes a little bit harder. And then when you start to realize that there's outside influences that weren't touched in this project or weren't considered in this project, or just economic, environmental factors of the business world all start to play in these benefits realization, you got to care and feed for it. You just can't say, well, we did the project. Project management 101. The project has a unique beginning and an end, right? Distinct beginning and end. And when it ends, you kind of wash your hands and walk away. Well, the benefits, realize the benefits is taking it beyond once that project ends and factoring in those different pieces. So yeah, it sounds easy. And from a reporting aspect, that's true. But from a decision model and how are we going to react to not meeting our thresholds or tolerances for these metrics, how are we going to react to it? And quite frankly, do we discontinue things? The hardest decision any organization has is killing a project once it's started. And then this is going into killing a program once it's been transitioned to operations. The benefits model, in theory, now I've not seen any organization do this, but in theory, it should then be able to drive business decisions, whether it's even worth pursuing this product in the marketplace once the project work is done.
Okay, so those were the three areas that you covered in your article: plan and model the benefits, align the plan with stakeholders, and then, like I said, tongue-in-cheek, the easiest part here, realize the benefits. But you also talk about the players that are involved in benefits management. And there are a ton of them. So we have the sponsor, the business owner, the program manager, portfolio manager, senior management. And then intentionally, I'm mentioning us. This is the project management podcast after all. So I'm mentioning the project manager at the end. Let's definitely talk about the project manager and how we are involved here in benefits management. From the other five here, sponsor, business owner, program manager, portfolio manager, senior management, which one do you think we should cover here and talk a little bit about?
Well, actually, I'm going to rewind even a little bit farther and go back to our thing on realize the benefits. There's a big chunk that the program manager needs to realize, and project managers do too. The organizational change management, the acceptance and adoption of these new outcomes and capabilities. That's probably the single biggest factor that's going to drive into your benefits realization. We've probably all, from an IT world, been involved where we developed something, we kept within the triple constraint, we got it on time, on budget, it met specifications, but it wasn't adopted for whatever reason. And it could realm from clearly personal feelings of resentment for whatever from the line workers to it doesn't meet their needs. We had a great requirements, but they weren't accurate requirements. So if I tie back and look at these people pieces from a program management perspective, making sure the organizational change management is there is critical. From a project management perspective, you may be the project manager of the organizational change activities, which could include making awareness, letting people know when things are happening, why they're happening, eliciting feedback from them as to what needs to happen, that whole brokering, the soft skills, the people skills coming in to get that voice of the customer, voice of the worker to make sure our project is viable for the company and realizing these benefits. So with that back from the project manager perspective, those discussions that you have with your sponsor, et cetera, in these different roles, the program manager, the portfolio manager, that they understand that you understand the people requirements to get this to work, that it's not just putting out the product or the outcome and capability, but it's making sure that there's adoption and getting those other things identified. You may not have direct responsibility for them, but you want to make sure that you have connections with the people that are doing it. So that's where I think when you talk about which one of these people come in, the answer is going to be all of them. You knew that before you asked the question.
Of course,
But really in the context of organizational change, and that these different players are aware and help you to make sure that those things are tracked and properly accounted for in your project itself. Now, one of the things that I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, one of my major pet peeves in the world today is a lot of organizations think a program manager is like a project manager on steroids or some sort of role that is the manager, functional manager for project managers. Per the standards and per Dave Davis's perspective on things, the program manager is really the benefits realization person. Their job is to make sure that all the different components understand what outcomes and capabilities need to be delivered so the company realizes the benefits. The benefits are qualified, categorized, quantified, and people understand what they own, what they contribute to, etc. So when we talk about who the project manager here should be interacting with the program manager, it's clearly an understanding of how are we measuring the benefits we're bringing back that these outcomes and capabilities are delivering. And our decision support model should be benefits focused. When a change control request comes in, the question needs to be asked, how does this impact the benefits? If you don't know what the benefits are from the business cases and the program plans, benefit realization plan, you can't answer that question. So the loop of those people is important. Of course, the sponsor needs to be involved to get that commission and the agreement and the message that this is important, that the business is behind this. This is where our priorities lie. And the other people, the business owner and the business sponsor, a lot of similarities there. A lot of times it's the same person. And the portfolio manager, their interface with this, I think, is more of a feedback to help them do their job better, because they've got kind of a tough position because they're supposed to forecast where some of these things are. So they're here with very little information, forecasting what's the cost going to take to do it, and value over time, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't have a lot of good empirical data from which to make these forecasts. So I think the program managers can be seen more and more in the future to be able to give those periodic feedback on the forecasting aspect and where that fits in. So they're all going to play a part. So when you say which one's the most, that's a real tough question to answer. But I think the benefits management is driving this whole organizational acceptance of the program's outputs. We've talked about that for a long time. It's becoming more and more mature, more and more an intricate part of the project manager's responsibility.
Okay, so we talked about the three areas of how benefits management is done on a high level. We looked at the players. Now let's take a look at the tools, because you also talk about a number of tools in your article. So what are some of the tools that you would say that we should be using or can be using?
Well, again, tools are just that. They help us do their utility to help us do functions. So we do need tools that help us to be able to put together this model that we talked about before. And the organization, one of the organizations I was with, did have a benefits tool itself. There's kind of a really more of a resource tracking cost against the plan benefit as opposed to an enterprise-wide benefits-wide. So we were pretty good at tracking those, building a model of what our resource requirements were, tracking actual hours and other costs against the budget that was forecast, etc. But to be able to give this benefits model for model and planning, we were using spreadsheets. So knowledge of Microsoft Excel was pretty important. That was a tool that we use a lot. And actually, I'm amazed. I've been with several different organizations over the last couple of years, and Excel has become very much a presentation tool of choice. People like this two-dimensional columns and rows. So even though we work in a three-dimensional, multi-dimensional world, one of the project manager's core communication skills is to be able to squeeze that down into two-dimensional presentation in rows and columns. And so Excel was the tool of choice for that. And the reasons for that, a lot of people like to be able to do the VLOOKUPs, quickly filter, to be able to sort, exclude, whatever. So that was one of the tools that we used. Also some X-Access database type tools, which did kind of the same Excel things, only instead of rows on a spreadsheet, they were entries within to an Access database. But that was a good way to be able to capture this information, and especially as it evolved and was going through that planning and modeling phase. Because as you can probably imagine, the initial numbers that were thrown out, once you had to go back and now let's go to the next level of detail, that original high-level number would adjust plus or minus 25%, let's say. So it was fairly quick and easy to be able to just do that within a cell or a macro within a spreadsheet. The other tools that were important were to be able to present and tell the story. That was most commonly through a PowerPoint type tool. I don't mean to just choose Microsoft Office products here, but they're probably the de facto standard. But the communication of the story, the benefits realization over time. And then probably more important than those tools was the technique in which they were used. How were the benefits presented in relation to forecasts and actuals? And can I truly use this model as a monitor control once we start realizing the benefits? How do they interlap over time? So we did a lot of Gantt charting. And the Gantt charts, some of them were macros based on the MX Excel, where we were able to take things over time and color code them and actually color in individual cells as though they were lines on a Gantt chart and show how the Gantt chart, show that view of the Gantt chart on a worksheet.
Is this the moment where things are now starting to sort of go back? You know, the second area we talked about, align the plan with the stakeholders. When you say, the technique is important, is this now where, being able to know the stakeholders, understand your metrics, and really have a proper technique for benefits management and bringing everything together, is this where things are starting to gel now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the presentation, that all that work up front on identifying, eliciting, qualifying, quantifying, as gel is the perfect word. When do you start to get that gel? This is what our picture is going to be. This is what our roadmap. I was involved in one program where we had an initial work, had gone through the first project, and we did a reevaluation, which is another thing. A program manager needs to treat benefits just like risk is treated as a project. It needs to be periodically reviewed, evaluated. Is the risk still out there? Is the mitigation working? What are the triggers that go from being a pending risk to an active risk? The same thing needs to happen. And we started to consolidate some benefits. We started to see that things we thought that were very much distinct benefits at the beginning suddenly melded into one because the cause and effect inputs into it, or what drove those benefits, were the same things. So we started to get from just the benefit itself truly back to what were the influencers of these benefits, and start to focus on where are things that we can change behavior that influence the benefits as opposed to just the benefit itself. So yes, I like your word gel there a lot, but there's that whole maturation of the program that gets such a better handle on this and strives for efficiency that continues on through the life cycle.
You've mentioned the program a couple of times and how central it is, and you've also said that the program manager is really the benefits manager. Often, benefits management isn't just one project, like you said. So does the money for benefits management come from the program management division? It
should, and that one of the challenges that way back in the beginning, we talked about why benefits management has become a hot topic and a good topic. Part of that challenge is that organizations need to figure out, whichever word's better. Where does the program manager fit in? How does the program manager get funded? What's the span of control of the program manager? So yes, the models that I worked in, the program manager was part of the overall program expense.
To close, let's acknowledge benefits management, it's not established everywhere yet. It would be nice, but Yes. And so what are 2 or 3 actions that we here as project managers, as program managers can do in order to develop a culture in our organization, a culture that embraces benefits management?
Start communicating using benefits terminology. We also not only do not a lot of places have benefits managers, a lot of places still don't have formal project charters, and the project manager has to create them. If the project manager is creating that charter, be able to have a section in there that says these are the benefits, that the outcomes of this project are going to contribute to these benefits to the corporation. As you look at your project time, cost, triple constraint, these are going to contribute to these sorts of benefits. Start to speak in the outcomes, or what your deliverables are, is how they're going to support the benefits of the organization. Change management decisions. How does it impact the overall benefit? Yeah, there's an immediate, how does it impact my triple constraint on the project, usually cost, time type thing, and scope. But then, if I take this scope out, I may be able to stay within a week, but I'm really taking a big hit on my benefits. Is it worth making this decision, stakeholder, sponsor, who's ever on your change control decision board? So start talking in that terminology. Ask back from the business case when they did a cost-benefit analysis, what were the factors that drove this benefit? And what are the things that I'm doing in my project that are going to impact those factors that drove the benefits? So I think the first thing we need to do is just start phrasing some of the things we do now into benefit structure terminology. then, as lessons learned and as I was through the life cycle, several of the different knowledge areas and different things, feedback, communication in response to benefits. And not be afraid to say, we had difficulty with this decision because we really didn't have a clear idea of what were the long-term benefits expected by our key stakeholders. So those sorts of behaviors, get prepared for them. Resource allocation, trade-off with other projects. I remember years ago, and a lot of people here are probably familiar with Dr. Harold Kersner. I actually had the fortunate to be able to take a class under him before I studied for my PMP, or as I was studying for my PMP. And I remember he started one of the sessions, says, okay, here you are, and you're a project manager, and you're getting your project team together. How many of you think that the job as a project manager should be able to negotiate however you can, rob, cheat, steal, to get the absolute best resource on your project team so your project's done on time and budget, etc.? And of course, we all, being naive at the time, raised our hand. He said, absolutely the wrong answer. The best resources should be on the most important projects, and the resources should be allocated across the most important projects. And the projects should have doing the right thing idea again. So we need to start looking at how do our projects and make sure that we're doing the right thing and be able to communicate that message. Our resources are allocated appropriately because it's doing the right thing. We're a feeder project to a larger initiative for the project or for the overall business objective itself. And if you were involved in putting together the first space shuttle and your job was really just to make the seats for the astronauts, that wouldn't have been considered as important as perhaps the flight, the engine to be able to take off and land, but it still was contributing to the success of the space shuttle. So you need to make sure you have that understanding of where you fit in, communicate it accordingly, how your work is contributing to the overall benefit package for the entire corporation. Again, back to enterprise-wide.
Wonderful. Dave, thank you so much for being here today and introducing us to benefits management.
Well, thank you. As you can tell, I have a little bit of a passion for it. And
just a little.
Yeah. And it's exciting stuff. And I am seeing more and more adoption and different things. And with that will come other challenges and opportunities. And the project manager is definitely a critical component again. Again, the tactical implementation of the strategy. It's where the rubber meets the road. That's one of the things that makes project management so exciting.
And that was our interview on benefits realization management with Dave Davis. If you are a project manager who wants to become PMP or PMI ACP certified, then the easiest way to do so is with, yes, our sister podcasts, the Project Management Prepcast and the Agile Prepcast. And study for the exam by watching the in-depth exam prep video training from pmprepcast.com. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. Even a failing project has benefits. We talk about those in the future tense. Until next time.